Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones must have used one of his lifelines because somehow the Cowboys improved not only their draft positioning, but also their chances of making the playoffs. Looks like the NFL gave Jerry and the Cowboys an assist this week. Let's get right into it, but first, a word from our sponsor. The Dallas Cowboys open up as a 6-point underdog against the Cincinnati Bengals with an over-under set at 49.5 points. If you've seen the Bengals play recently and you've seen their defense, then you know that 49 points may be a little bit on the low side. But with our sponsors, BetUS, you can bet on a variety of NFL football games any kind of way you would like, whether it be money line, over under point spread, or putting together a parlay. You'll be able to do all that and more with BetUS. And for a limited time, you can use promo code YouTube150 to get a 150% first time deposit bonus up to $2,000. Please remember to bet responsibly, and let's get right back into the video. All right, so if you pay attention to what happened throughout the course of NFL football this past weekend, then the Cowboys inched a step closer to being able to make the NFC playoffs. But in addition to that, they also improved their draft ranking. They went into the weekend with about the 19th overall draft pick after beating the New York Giants on Thanksgiving. And coming out of Sunday, the Cowboys are currently sitting at number 13 on the draft board. In addition to that, after the happenings of this past weekend, the Cowboys are actually not that far out of the NFC playoff picture. They're only sitting 2 games behind the current 7th seed in the NFC. And as of right now, not only do they have a game to play against that 7th seed, but right now, they have the tiebreaker as well. Now, just a few short weeks ago, it was out of the realm of possibility that anybody thought the Dallas Cowboys would be making the playoffs, but this is one of the reasons why I say you have to see how these seasons play out, because the NFL is a league full of parity, and you have no clue how these games are going to go from week to week, especially in this season, when you have teams like the San Francisco 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, and some of the other hopeful teams that people thought were going to be serious contenders, the Cincinnati Bengals. You have these teams out there seriously struggling, some with reason and some without, but the Dallas Cowboys have found themselves firmly in the playoff hunt, and I'm telling y'all, it is not as ridiculous as it may seem that the Cowboys could find themselves making the playoffs, and they may not even have to win all the rest of their games. Let's go ahead and take a look at this as we take a look at the Cowboys' path to the playoffs and some of the things that would have to happen for them to actually be able to make it there. For this exercise, we will be using the NFL playoff machine, and essentially all we're going to do is go through, take a look at the teams that are ahead of the Cowboys on the standings, and predict some matchups and how the season could realistically play out, and we'll see if the Cowboys have a decent chance of actually squeezing in to that last playoff spot. So if we actually look at it, the teams that are ahead of the Cowboys for the playoff hunt right now is the San Francisco 49ers. They do have the tiebreaker over us because they beat us earlier this season. The Los Angeles Rams, the Arizona Cardinals, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Washington Commanders. So as we currently stand, there's only 5 teams ahead of the Cowboys, and again, it's just a 2-game separation with about 5 games left to play. So that honestly is not out of the realm of possibility of something that could happen. But if we go ahead and take a look at this, let's go ahead and assume the Cowboys actually win their matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals, which we'll do a proper preview in a few days. But let's say the Cowboys win this matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. That puts them at 6-7. Some of the other teams that were ahead of us were the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks are actually going to end up being ahead of us as well, because right now they're the division leader. So based off of how that game goes, we could either see the Seahawks drop back a spot and end up taking the spot of the Arizona Cardinals essentially as one of the teams ahead of us, or if the Seahawks were to actually beat the Cardinals, we could see how that plays out as well. So we're going to give the Seahawks that matchup over the Cardinals. The 49ers are going to be playing against the Chicago Bears. You'd have to think the 49ers have lost a couple of games in a row. They're probably going to get right in this game. So we're going to give the 49ers this matchup, just being realistic. The Buccaneers are going to be playing against the Las Vegas Raiders. They're likely going to probably end up winning that game. So I'm going to give the Buccaneers that game. And looky here, one of the teams ahead of us, the Los Angeles Rams, gets to play against the buzzsaw that is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are on a hot streak. I'm picking the Bills to take that matchup over the Rams, and that should help the Cowboys out a little bit, because remember, the Rams is one of the teams that's ahead of the Cowboys in the standing. All right, next up in week 15, games that are going to be super important. The Rams and the 49ers play each other. So regardless of how this game plays out, one of those teams are going to fall back behind the Cowboys in the standings as long as the Cowboys can take care of business. And this week, the Cowboys would have the Panthers. So let's assume, fingers crossed, that they can take care of business. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys over the Panthers here. And we're actually going to pick the Rams over the 49ers because I do feel like the Rams may have the advantage over the 49ers. The 49ers, is something looks off about them. So we're going to say the Rams win that game against the 49ers. And looky here, the Packers also play against the Seahawks this week as well. The Packers are probably going to be heavily favored in that matchup. So let's just say it goes chalk, and the Packers beat the Seahawks in that matchup. The Cardinals also match up against the Patriots. The Patriots are one of those teams where it can really go either way. Now, they are going to be playing in Arizona, so I am going to give Arizona the nod here. Then we go into week 16. The Cowboys going to be matched up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This could potentially be a massive game as it pertains to the Cowboys' playoff hopes. This is definitely one that you're going to put a star around if they were to beat the Cincinnati Bengals this week. And you're looking at the rest of the schedule, this is one of the games you need to put a star around because this is a game that could absolutely determine the Cowboys getting into the playoffs, as they're going to be matched up against a team who is slightly ahead of them in the playoff rankings. Let's say the Cowboys are at home, they pull this one off. We've taken enough home losses. We're playing against Baker. I'm going to hang my hat on the Cowboys defense on this one. We take this one against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Cardinals going to be playing against the Carolina Panthers. This 100% feels like a trap game for the Cardinals, so I'm going to go ahead and give the Panthers this matchup. Remember, we need a little bit of something to go our way in order to actually make this happen. So let's just say the Panthers do knock off the Arizona Cardinals here. And the 49ers are going to be matched up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. I'm picking Miami to win that game. And the Eagles and Commanders have a matchup as well. Unfortunately, if you want the Cowboys to make the playoffs, we're going to have to pull for the Dirty Birds here. The Rams are going to be matched up against the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers is still playing, that's one of those games that can truly go either way. But just to make it a little bit more difficult on ourselves, I'm going to give the Rams the win here. The Seahawks are going to be matched up against the Vikings. So again, this is another one of those teams that's ahead of us in the standings that has a schedule that's going to probably end up with a couple more losses over the course of the next 5 weeks. I'm going to give the Vikings this win over the Seahawks. Then we go into week 17. In week 17, the Cowboys are matched up against the Eagles in Philadelphia. It's very likely we're probably going to end up losing that matchup. But let's just say the Cowboys don't get swept by the Eagles this season. The Eagles are a little bit banged up. It's towards the end of the year. They already have their seed wrapped up essentially. Let's just say some of their key pieces may not be available in this game. And let's give this game to the Cowboys just for the fun of this experiment. And we take a look here. The Commanders have a game against the Falcons. That could be a very, very tough game. I'm going to give the Commanders an L here because we are going to need some help from someone outside of the Eagles to beat the Commanders. And it's possible that the Eagles don't even do that. So we're going to give the W to Atlanta here. The Lions are going to be matched up against the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously going to be taking the Lions here. And the Rams and Cardinals going to be faced up against each other. So honestly, really two of those NFC West teams that are currently ahead of us in the standings, they're more than likely going to drop out of there. So I don't think that we have to worry about those NFC West teams too much because they have to play each other too often. So let's say the Rams take this one against the Cardinals. And boom! The season is not even over. And as of right now, with the way that this schedule has gone from week 14 to week 17, based off of how I picked the games, the Cowboys would have to win every single game. But based off of how those games have gone, the Cowboys have slid into that 7th seed spot already, with the Commanders losing to the Falcons. So essentially, before the season's even over, before the full season is even played out, the Cowboys could find themselves in playoff position if they win their matchups against the Bengals, Panthers, Buccaneers, and Eagles, which, to be honest, all those games except for the Eagles one, I feel like the Cowboys have a decent chance to win in. But if the Cowboys can do that, the Commanders lose to the Eagles, and then they lose to the Falcons, the Cowboys will find themselves sliding into the playoffs as a 7th seed as of right now. And then it would all come down to a week 18 matchup against the Washington Commanders. And that game would probably be the one that's for all the marbles. Now, let's just say it didn't play out like that. Let's say the Commanders beat the Falcons. The Cowboys lost to the Eagles. Well, obviously that would then slot the Cowboys out of that playoff position, because then Washington would be 10-6, Cowboys would be 8-8, and even if the Cowboys were to beat Washington in a week 18 matchup, at that point Washington would have won too many games. So you absolutely are going to need some help from someone. So while the Cowboys do have a path to the playoff, that path to the playoff includes getting a lot of help from some teams that just may not be up to the challenge, y'all. So I say all that to say that yes, the Cowboys do have a chance to make the playoffs. Yes, the NFL absolutely assisted them in having that chance of making the playoffs based off of how these games played out, but they also have equally as high of a chance of completely screwing up their draft pick and missing the playoffs. So at this point, it's very, very treacherous waters, and this is going to be a very anxiety-filled last month of the season for anybody that is hoping that the Cowboys do pull it off and make it to the playoffs. Either way, let me know down in the comments below, do you want the Cowboys to make the playoffs, or would you rather them tank the rest of the season, improve their draft positioning? Where are you at as it pertains to how we're thinking about the rest of this season? Because at this point, man, it's hard for me to root for my team to lose. I mean, for a week or two there, I was like, all right, team tank. We're 3-7 or whatever it was. We were absolutely terrible, but now we've won a couple of games and we're closer to 500 than we are closer to the top of the draft, right? So at this point, I want my team to win, man. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Let me know down in the comments below where you at, and be sure to subscribe for more Dallas Cowboys content on the regular. And we still same old Cowboys.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still in ball? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still in boys. Hey! Woo! Oh, shut up, my boy. Hey! I'm still in boys.